Paranormal evidence.
Tonight, see what truly exists inside the world of the paranormal. Inside. Join the discussion and review some of the best paranormal evidence captures from a wide variety of experienced and up-and-coming investigators. See and hear what they capture, where they captured it, and how they captured it. Right now on Entity Voices
Paranormal evidence.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. We are all us.
Minus one.
Miss Lourdes had to work late tonight, so unfortunately she won't be able to join us.
That dang work thing, I tell you.
I know, we were just talking about it.
Kicks them away all the time.
Yep.
Destroys my free time.
So
Not playtime.
not playtime. So before we get started, I just want to say it is Thanksgiving week.
It is?
It is. And guys, we won't be here live on Monday, but we will be back the following Monday because of the Thanksgiving weekend. We're traveling, so we won't have time to put a show together. Tony and Cherie won't have time to put the show together.
Get well soon, Roger.
Well, how do you have to feel, Roger, to just lay there and watch?
I know, right?
Suck it up, Roger. Suck it up.
We're not asking you to run laps, fucker.
It'll make it feel worse.
I'd go to bed, Roger.
I'd go
Roger. Feel better.
the host, and she'd say, "Fuck it."
To be fair, he's put more hours into this show than we have, so it's.
He'd feel better if he wasn't here 48 hours before it started.
There's
Hey,
Raul.
Beth, hello.
Miss Mary Beth.
Raul, Mary Beth.
But I just wanted to say,
The
one of
Cocos.
the
What are the
things-
odds?
there's the Cocos. I wonder who those people are. Just wanted to say before the show starts and before, so I don't forget at the end of the show, one thing the six of us will have to be thankful for is all of you that tune in and all of our guests that jump on every week. So I wanted to make sure I said that and made it clear before we get rolling.
Good idea.
Nicely put, baby.
Yeah.
So what do you got planned for Thanksgiving?
We're skipping it entirely. We invited all of the kids to come, and Cherie said, just do us a favor. We'll make it kind of a potluck so it's easier. Just bring a dish of something, whatever. And I think the response to bring was,
My eldest son.
well,
I said, what are you going to bring? I'll bring myself, Mama. I'm like, my empty stomach. That's what he said. I'll bring salt, pepper, and sugar. I'm like, okay.
so we went, we're going camping.
Yeah.
Nice.
What to do?
Yeah, we're going to enjoy it. We need it.
Good. It will be nice.
Yeah. Weather's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can't beat it. It's plus we're gonna go mine some what? What are we mining?
Yo, business.
I don't ever do that. I don't ever do that. Obsidian.
Mind your own.
Obsidian.
Apache Tears. We're going to the old Apache Tear mine.
Oh, neat.
Oh, wow.
Gonna grab some stuff that I can throw on the
I know, right, Gio?
that's a young person answer.
But he's 32 years old. He's no young anymore.
Compared to us?
Yeah, I could be 32 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't be, but I'd be nice.
I wouldn't want to redo it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would not.
There are a few parts I wouldn't mind getting a second shot at, but for the most part, no.
Clean, Tony. Keep the show clean.
Keep it clean.
What about you, Ronald? What are you and Lourdes doing for Thanksgiving?
We're going to probably have a nice little dinner with my father. Him and
nice.
his girlfriend always do different stuff because she has one of her sons that still lives here. The other one's actually out in Arizona.
He's still here?
My father, no, he's back, but his girlfriend, one of her sons moved back to Arizona and got married, which is why he'd gone out there. So we're gonna have dinner with him, and my son's back from college all week from Huntsville, and so because he's an adult, we give him a choice. You know, you can go with his mom to his stepdad's family, or he can come with us. And he very much likes a restaurant that my father took him to last time, so he's coming with us.
Nice.
So that'll be us two, and my son and my father, which is something I want to have every holiday I can with while I can do it.
Absolutely.
Of course. Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Awesome.
Makes sense.
We are driving to Toledo again
Yep.
to be with Audra's family for Thanksgiving.
Mama.
10 hours, you said?
Yeah, 8.5.
Coming back, it's 8 hours and 15 minutes going up, but coming back on Sunday, we hit the Thanksgiving traffic.
Yeah, Sunday's no fun.
And as you come down through West Virginia, three interstates combine into one,
Yeah.
and then don't dump into two until you get down into the northern part of North Carolina. So that section is a biatch.
Yeah.
So it usually takes us anywhere from 9.5 to 12, depending on if there's an accident or.
Yeah. It feels like 48.
Be
That
careful.
1 year it did.
Yeah, it did. It was bad.
And
So
not state 48.
There's a tunnel as you leave Virginia that goes into West Virginia. It cuts right through this huge mountain, right? And it's about a quarter mile long. Well, there's a second tunnel in West Virginia that does the same thing. And they tell you not to pass in the tunnel because you can get an accident, right?
Yep.
Well, the 1 year it took us almost 13 hours to get home because some asshole decided.
Passed.
Huh?
I said because he passed.
Yeah, some asshole decided to pass in the tunnel and wrecked. And you can't. It's not like they can maneuver people around the mountain, right? So you basically
Had to wait.
sit in a parking lot on the interstate waiting for them to clear.
They clear everything up. Wow.
I think they can maneuver people around the mountain. If I'm not mistaken, there was a song about it.
We'll be coming around the mountain. There you go. Yeah. Good call. Good
Yeah,
call.
but those fuckers had donkeys, which is what you would need to get around this mountain.
You were stuck in traffic because of an ass. See the similarities?
True.
There is a way to get around it, but it's like it adds like 2.5, 3 hours to your drive because
Wow. How
yeah,
long did you sit there for?
we sat there for an hour and a half, 45 minutes to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Still better than that. Still better than that.
Not bad.
But that's because we must have showed up right after the accident because we were like parked right outside the tunnel.
Wow.
But traffic behind us was about 2,
Oh,
3,
it's
4
bad.
miles
I'm
back.
glad we were not there.
Yes.
Wow.
It's gorgeous. Kind
Fun, fun.
awesome.
Should be good.
It should. It's a good. Any time with family is a good time.
True.
Yep.
That's right.
That's why we like Monday nights.
Speaking of
Family.
Speaking of family,
being with family and being thankful for something, tonight's show is something that I know is very much looking forward to because two of the best investigators, two of the best people, been to their public events before, treat everybody. There's no such thing as a category of a paracelebrity and everybody else. Like everybody got treated like royalty. When you come to their events, everybody gets treated well. Everybody's considered, can participate. The location that we most know them for is fantastic. And both of them in the last 2 books that I've released, Paranormalization, Memoirs of an Academic Layperson, and Afterlife Contact, both of them have contributed a chapter, or to what I made its own chapter. It could have been 2 pages or it could have been 20, because they both have really, really valuable insights and approaches and intelligent means of looking at and assessing, investigating, evidence capture and evaluation. So these are 2 people I'm proud to call my friends, and that's why whoever reads my books will also need to know who they are, because I thought it was important.
Nice.
and what's really awesome is in May, Audra and I get to investigate Tala with them.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Private.
Oh, very cool.
Nice.
So without further ado,
A D.
everybody say hello to Frankie and Anthony of ParaSight Investigations. Hey, guys.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
Oh, welcome, guys.
how can we I'm ready to go. That intro,
Yeah.
I'm done. You know,
That's the show. Good night, everybody.
See what I mean?
So
Yeah, you guys both, after you get through the opening, introducing yourself stuff, you both have two unique things you bring to the field. I think would be cool to make sure we touch on before the show finishes.
So towards the end, we'll have our normal shameless plugs. Frankie, you've been on before, right?
mm-hmm.
So let's start it off by, since it's been a while, why don't you guys introduce yourself, what got you into the paranormal, and tell us what ParaSight does that's so unique.
Who's
Frankie, I
going?
think I'm going to leave that to you.
Okay, all right. So I'm Frankie Adao. I've been in the paranormal, into paranormal stuff, probably unofficially like the last, I would say, like 8 years. And met Anthony by happenstance, and it's just been a brotherhood from there. I come from a psychology background, so I'm a forensic social worker, and I got into doing this a little bit more kind of seriously, for lack of a better term, when I started working with individuals who had schizophrenia. So they would tell me things about like what they were experiencing, hearing, seeing things, and it would be people from one end of the state to the bottom of the state, no idea who each other were, and the details of the experiences were like uncanny to the detail. So I said, is this really psychosis? We label it psychosis, schizophrenia, but are they experiencing stuff that we just can't explain or choose not to explain in science, and labeling them with like a mental health disorder? So I kind of started going to some of the paranormal tour companies investigating, and that's how I met Anthony. So I'll let Anthony introduce himself, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, all right. So I'm Anthony M, or Anthony ManiacalTricycle, as you know me on Facebook. I think one of the big things that I talk about is I've got about over 20 years of law enforcement experience, and I kind of apply a lot of, thank you. I apply a lot of the investigative procedure to how we conduct paranormal investigations. I think it's a slightly different approach than other people take, but it's been able to help me come up with a system that we like to use to kind of grade or score experiences or footage or however it might be, to kind of get people to understand a little bit more as far as what we deal with. And that's my big thing.
Well, that's awesome, Anthony. But the one person here that can absolutely relate to what you just said is Mr. Allgood, because background, law enforcement background as well. And I remember first investigating Phelps Dodge. I mean, it was with them, and it was like a whole nother experience because of the attention to detail and the unbelievable.
Yeah, I love what you guys do, because I think you both bring to the field, to the table, two different things that are, I think at this juncture in the evolution of paranormal investigating, ghost hunting, whatever, are so necessary. Anthony, with the grading system of evidence, we've all seen different garden variety labels of Class A stuff that was everything from A to Z in quality, but they're calling it Class A. So I think what you bring to that, some kind of a structure for categorizing and evaluating and assessing, is huge. I think it's a big thing, and it should be looked at. And Frankie, same with what you're doing, because one of the things that we build on a foundation now with analytic idealism, with reality being fundamentally mental, the model that nature shows us is dissociative identity disorder, which, much like what you're talking about, maybe 50 years or so ago, before brain imaging and stuff was at the point it's at now, they didn't even know to take it seriously, but now they know there's something that it looks like. Right. But prior to that, not. So I think the stuff that you're entertaining and fusing into the paranormal also because of the mentation part of what we experience and everything. I think is also very important. So you guys, that was why I really wanted to put a spotlight on both of you in each of the books, because I think it's new and it's innovative, and God, we need it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right
And I remember when Anthony and I first met, Anthony was doing some of this stuff a lot longer than I have. And I just wanted to do everything. Like I wanted to build my own shit. I wanted to investigate. Everything got like washed, washed. So I just kind of said, I'm going to stick to my lane and what I do best. And that's mental behavioral health, forensic therapy. I do trauma-based work, so I actually do bring a lot of the clinical modalities that I would work with somebody in the living, in trauma-based work. I do that with spirit now, so it's a lot of the times we're asking them to kind of go there in there, tell us what your trauma is, and then we poke at it, we exploit it, then we walk away and we leave them with this open wound. So like what I try to do now is do, when I'm doing a therapy session with somebody and I'm talking about trauma, at the end of the hour, I just can't say, okay, peace out, bye. I have to close it out. I have to make sure that person is leaving the session with not all this open stuff that can manifest even worse than it was before. So we've been pulling in from what me and Anthony do, like for our day jobs, into the field, and it just seems to be like our lane. And he's not going to brag about himself, but I am. Anthony is phenomenal when it comes to like technology, building, electronics, everything. I mean, I'm glad that I did experience that, because I'm the type of person like I want to know the behind how it works. So Anthony kind of like, it was a good experience because now I can understand what he's talking about. Like when he's talking about building quality electronics and devices and equipment that is reputable, not mass marketed. Love the fact that I have a partner that can create devices and equipment for us tailored to what we do. So that's super unique. So yeah, it's just bringing what we do to the field, instead of recreating something new.
Right.
It's phenomenal. And if our audience is paying really close attention, by watching our show every week that Frankie and Anthony aren't really here to be guests. They're here for an evaluation on all four of us. That's why Lourdes didn't show up.
She's the one that would pass, so I didn't have her.
No. We hit the one sane person we had. The rest of us are doomed.
But I also want to say, like, a special thanks to you guys, because when Anthony and I were first starting the group, we were in it just to have people come together and have experiences doing paranormal research. And a lot of the feedback that we got from you guys early on is some of the stuff that we keep core to our mission today. I remember Ron came to one of our first events and he was like, whatever you guys are doing, don't change it. Improve on it, but don't change it. And we kind of stuck with that model, and everything we do is just for ourselves, and the work will speak for itself.
Yep.
Taking that advice to heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's where it came from, and the way you guys treated everybody, the thought and effort that you put into the event, engaging the way you make it for the public, it was really, really well done. So yeah, I agree, and I've done a lot of public events by groups who really know how to do a good job. So it was impressive. That advice was genuine for sure, and you've done a lot to help us too. We met Daryl Marston at a Ritz event that you had us come down to, and he's done a lot of things. He still cheerleads for us very much and drops our names. So we wouldn't have had the opportunity to cross his path like that if it wasn't for you either. So you guys also are community members who understand the give and the take.
So Anthony, real quick. So part of the show with your evidence clips that you guys sent in tonight is Anthony's going to do a MEGS assessment for each clip. Explain to our audience what MEGS is.
Yeah.
So the short version is It stands for, well, for now, because I don't like throwing my last name out there too much, but it stands for the ManiacalTricycle Experience Grading System. And what we do is we basically break down paranormal occurrences into either an empirical category or an anecdotal category. And the simplest way to distinguish the difference between the two is empirical occurrences, footage or data or whatever you want to call it, is something that can be verified by playing back footage or reviewed by playing it back. So whether it's video or audio or a photo, you can look directly at that and say, that's what happened. That was an EVP that sounded like someone saying hello. That is a shadow that looks like it's in the shape of a person. It's a very simple cut and dry approach with the empirical stuff. Either it's there or it's not. As far as anecdotal, the short version for that is essentially anything that is not empirical. So it could be something as simple as you experienced something, but your camera wasn't facing what you saw, or you felt something, or if you're working with someone who may be a medium or someone who's psychic, they can relay what they see, hear, or feel, and you can't review that on footage. You can't reveal what they saw or felt, but it doesn't discount the fact that it happened. Much like a lot of the experiential things that you can't review in terms of footage, you can't deny that those things happen, because I think that's a huge part of the paranormal experience.
Yeah. No, that's important. I think everything we know in life, everything we know through experience, even if it's quantifiable, right? You know, heavy because of the experience of what it feels like. Everything is through experience. So I think that's very important.
Right. And I feel like that's like a major thing that's missing from reviewing footage, or maybe like if you like to watch shows or anything like that. They're all chasing a lot of the empirical footage or data or whatever you want to call it. But there isn't a lot of emphasis put on the anecdotal stuff, which is, like I said, like I feel like that's a huge part of the experience that no one gets to talk about.
Yeah, because nobody's going to get famous for saying that somebody tugged their hair that was
Right.
disembodied. That's why. So everybody's focusing on the flag they can wave, the land that they can discover and plant it in.
Right.
That's a great separation based on, like you said, whether it's empirical where you can actually watch it, have other people watch it and say, oh yeah, okay, I saw it, versus anecdotal where you can't. Have you found any anecdotal placed experiences though that you were able to switch out of anecdotal because of some other capture, third piece of evidence, or other equipment that took it from being just plain anecdotal into empirical?
That's actually a great question. I gotta stop and think about that. So yeah, actually, I could talk about the shared experience between Frankie and I when we first met. We were at White Hill Mansion, and there was kind of a lull in this. It was a public investigation, and there was kind of a lull. I was talking to the hosts, and I had an SLS camera that I put together, and I was all excited to use it because it was like the first time I got to take it out. And I was all happy about it. And someone comes over and they say, "Is that camera on right now?" And I'm like, "Well, I could get it powered up in like 2 seconds, no problem." They're like, "Okay, good, because there's someone over here in this room who's saying that something is holding him down." So I get to this area in White Hill Mansion, and there's a guy rolling around on the floor, saying something like, "He's standing on top of me. He's standing on top of me." So automatically in my day job, I'm thinking, what I know from my day job is, all right, this guy might not be having a paranormal experience. This guy might need someone else's help. So I point the camera at him, and I don't see anything. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. Let me continue to entertain this. And I pull back a little bit more, and I'm about maybe 10 feet away. And then all of a sudden on the camera, there's this stick figure that's standing exactly where he's saying this stick figure is. He's saying he's standing on my shoulders, he's standing on my shoulders, and there's a stick figure that goes from the floor to the ceiling, and its feet are right where his shoulders would be. And it was it was incredible. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking it's got to be something else. It's got to be tracking something else. But it was on a section of the wall where there was no molding, there were no pictures, there was no clock on the wall or anything like that. It was a blank wall, and there was this thing doing exactly what this person was talking about.
Oh, wow.
Awesome example. That's what I was curious if you
said. And that's how we started. I actually heard all the commotion. I was up in the creepy bathroom and heard what was going on. I came down the stairs, and Anthony was like on one of the landings with his SLS camera. And I've only seen them on ghost shows and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm going to sit right behind this guy and watch everything that's going on. And it was like amazing, because if this guy was saying that there was somebody standing on top of him, again, Anthony's job, my job, we kind of hear things all the time. So we're not generally surprised when stuff like that comes up. But to see the actual like an image of what this guy was experiencing, they call it the hostage, like he was being held hostage. It was fascinating. And I was doing podcasting at the time, and something compelled me to I wanted to do an episode on it. And I'm the type of person where I'm not going to steal somebody's footage without permission. So I tracked Anthony down. He happened to put it on Friends of Whitehill's Facebook page, and I communicated with him, and the rest was history. That's how we met, and that's how we just basically said we're going to try to create a team that is, does come from a science-based, evidence-based kind of mission, but also open to believing other experiences that may not be scientific. So, and I don't come from that. I come from a science background, but more of a health science background. So to have Anthony bring that, the analytical kind of side to it, I loved it, because it kind of sets us apart from the rest. I think what Anthony is bringing to the game is validation for people, rather than it just being some hokey. I think it's, people call us a fringe science, but when you do stuff like how Anthony is, it brings validation to why this should be considered a science. Parapsychology for me is a real thing. So, to kind of wrap it all together, that's what our mission is. So
parapsychology is a real thing, and it's definitely applicable. I don't think the paranormal is ever going to be a science or a pseudoscience. It doesn't fit any of the tenets of science and what they say that they evaluate at all. And certainly wouldn't be a pseudoscience if it's not trying to be a science in an empty or absent of process way.
Right.
But I think that sciences can be applied to the areas that they can be applied to. Mm-hmm. I like with the MEGS, I think is what's really cool is it's encouraging assessment. There's a lot of just opinion and just, oh, this is A, this is class A, this is this and that. And there's not a lot of an assessment to the quality. Yes, I mean you're forcing people to look at this and go, where does this fit on the scale? Honestly,
and that's great. That's a great point, Ron. But even with people calling even something such as parapsychology a pseudoscience, I mean, just isn't fair. I mean, if you look at the way parapsychologists interact, it's clearly a social science, whether they believe it or not. Using pseudoscience for parapsychology just seems unfair, because it's a social science without a doubt.
Right. 100%. Yep.
Who wants to see some evidence?
Well, yes. Yes.
Frankie's like, fuck it, I've seen it.
No, we're super excited because no one has seen this footage yet. So
really,
Nice.
all of them.
All of them. This is all exclusive stuff for the show.
Oh, wow.
That's right, y'all. You saw it here on Entity Voices. That's right. That's awesome.
A couple of people were asking questions, and I just wanted to answer those. I think Raul was asking where in Whitehill it happened, and it was in the foyer area right where the steps go right up to the next floor. So it was that big open area, like if you were to walk in through the main entrance, not the back entrance. It was right over there, and he was rolling around actually not too far from the front door. As far as the person who it happened to, Todd and Carmela, he was able to get out of it, whatever was happening. If I recall correctly, someone had some Florida water that they threw on him, and a few other good intentions were
what's Florida water?
I'm not entirely sure. I just remember someone saying it, and I looked it up once, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. But
from what I know what Florida water is, it's the only thing that I can kind of like equate it to is like holy water.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's used in a lot of different cultures. I used to go to this shop in the old town that I used to live in, and they sold Florida water that you can clean your floors with to like help protect your home. So yeah, it's just something. It's something that people use in different cultures for protection.
No, I appreciate the explanation. I just had never heard that.
Yeah.
Holy water for Puerto Ricans. Yeah. It kind of is. I have a bottle of it here. The first group I ever worked with when I lived in LA is where I learned about it, and they used it all the time. It's supposed to be something you use along the lines of like sage or Palo Santo,
right?
For purification and cleansing and all that kind of stuff.
I didn't know if it was like tequila, but instead of the worm, it had a little alligator in the bottom.
There you go. It's Florida water with some bite. No, I'm just kidding. So Florida water is a perfumed water that's used in religious or spiritual rituals. Some people believe that it wards off negative energy to bring good luck. You use Florida water to cleanse your home, your clothing, your altars, spritz it on your body, and attract good luck, repel bad energy.
Yeah, along the lines of sage and Palo Santo, right? Ritualistic.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know. Thank you.
Need to get some.
But he did it like Anthony was saying. They escorted him out, made sure that he had there was no medical concerns or because I think there was also an EMT there that just all happened to be in the area. So if that was going to happen, it was like the great place because you had a bunch of different people who kind of were able to say like, don't lift him up just in case he was having like a medical emergency or something like that. So it was handled very, very well with White Hill. And that's why we love we have such an affinity to White Hill because wasn't for that event, we wouldn't be here talking about it right now. So it holds a very special place for us.
Yeah.
White Hill.
It's awesome.
It's a cool place.
All right, so your first clip. Final They're Here clip. So let's take a look. Here we go.
Who's here? Can you say it in? Can you tell us the name of the gentleman that runs the theater? We heard it say the name. Can you say it again, please? Someone need help? Hey.
How many women? And how many men?
Nice presentation.
Yes, very much so.
Nice presentation. That's wild.
What's wild was the first thing that we got was weird Staticom.
That's the room.
I was just gonna say that, like, when Ron and Lourdes have ever come and brought Staticom to the Ritz, it's always been in that second floor rehearsal room. It's like Staticom's home. I always joke around, like, you know, if Ron and Lourdes aren't there, like, what's gonna happen? You know what I mean? Like, but they felt like that's a way of communicating clearly with us. So, but I mean, I have a very full disclosure. I always tell people I'm like the worst when it comes to like hearing and seeing things. That's why I like review footage. It takes me forever. But besides, like, I always tell Ron and Lourdes, Staticom is the only way that I can communicate properly with spirit. I've used Ron and Lourdes in some work that I do. Like, it's called PDR, so it's a version of EMDR, which is a bilateral stimulated modality to treat trauma. And I wouldn't be able to do it or have done it or practiced it without Staticom, because I need to be able to hear responses. And that night, of course, I'm gonna brag about him again. The spirit box or radio that we're using was built by Anthony. The portal was built by Anthony, and it was crystal clear, where we can definitively, we like heard it so crystal clear. So it made like the review, and the names that we got were all valid. Bruce that came through, he's the gentleman that runs the theater, keeps the theater going. And then we were able to get some names from it that we can now do some research on, that maybe we didn't catch before, like Doug. Doug came up, didn't know who Doug was. I looked through the historical record application, and Doug is the gentleman that actually completed the application. So now it's like, who is this Doug guy? So reaching out to the theater and finding out some information about who this person is. Yeah.
That's cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very clear. Anthony does build great stuff, and that was proof of it right there.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna brag again. The person that you hear speaking, the female, is actually Anthony's wife. Which anytime Shayna comes to anything we do, we tend to get a really great response from spirit. They feel very comfortable communicating with her. So yes, it was just such a wild event that night. I mean, Anthony could tell you, we almost had to say, like, okay, it's enough, we got to go, because we're going to be here forever if we don't put a pin on this thing right now. So
Yeah,
cameo by Raul too in the
right.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going to say the most paranormal part about that clip was Raul. That's amazing. Nice clip. Very nice clip.
So, yeah, I guess if we're gonna do like a quick little MEGS review, because
there you go,
to show you how prepared or unprepared I am, I was actually taking the notes as the clip was playing. But so the majority of these clips, as far as I can remember, most of what's happening is empirical. A lot of the time, we would catch anecdotal evidence. I usually tell people in attendance at our events, if you feel something or you hear something, just shout it out nice and loud. So that way, if we have our body cameras on, we'll be able to catch someone saying, hey, I felt a chill here, or I felt something touch me. Sometimes it works. Sometimes folks aren't as vocal as you'd like, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But if we look at things, the first thing that comes up is Staticom, and I thought that was pretty audible, because usually the way I consider this is if something is loud and clear, as in like if you were to play it to 3 different people and they could understand what's being said, then that's considered loud and clear. If there's a little bit more interpretation that's required, then I'll put it in anecdotal, but I'll still make a list of what it could possibly be. You know, we still heard something. We're not entirely sure. It could be any one of these things, but since it's up to interpretation, it's going to be anecdotal. But the first thing that came up was Staticom, so I would give that 1 point. The next thing that came up was the name Bob, which has some relevance, as Frankie could talk about if you want to, but that would be another point. We'll come back to it. The next, there was a question, and I think it was, can you hear us? And the answer was yes. So the thing is, because we have timing and relevance, thank you, Ron, for bringing that up. But because the question gives the answer context with the timing and relevance, it would actually get 1 point for the question and 1 point for the answer. From there, we got a series of names, which are Bruce, Dave, and Doug. Because that was all one thing, that would get 1 point. And then there was a help me, which was another point. Then Shayna had asked, any idea what that noise is coming from? All right. Am I the only one hearing that?
No, I heard.
We heard.
Was it this?
Yeah.
That was me.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you guys were trolling me or what. Like, this guy's getting boring.
No,
I just want to warn you, Tony doesn't stop eating.
I just need snacks.
Listen, I'm all for snacks. It's all good. So there was a question of how many spirits are here, and we got a response of 8. So that was, again, a point for the question, a point for the answer. There was another question, I think, of how many women, and it was 6. So again, 1 for a question, 1 for an answer. And then how many men was the question, and it was 3. So basically what that was is between the questions and the answers, that would have a total MEGS score of 13. And the importance of that is it gives some kind of numerical value to your footage. So if you play, this was originally made to present any sort of findings to private clients. And with private clients, everyone's all over the spectrum in terms of believer or skeptic, or as I like to say, like Mulder and Scully. So you have to kind of find that common ground to say, this is what we're seeing, this is what's happening, and let's put a numerical value on it. And it's kind of something that if everyone looks at the footage, they can all agree that they saw that's what happened on the footage.
So that's awesome. I'm going to assume then that the MEG score can only be applied then to empirical.
Well, it's usually applied to the empirical, but at the same time, there's a certain amount of trust that you have to have between your investigators and what you're presenting. That's
of course.
Of course. You know? So, yeah, you're not going to be able to review a lot of anecdotal stuff.
Right.
That's just the nature of it. But you can't deny, at the same time, you don't want to deny that it happened either. So you still have to make a note of it in any which way, which is why I was saying earlier, like, if we have an event, I try to tell people if they feel something to be vocal about it, say something. So at least then it can be acknowledged.
Right. No,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
There's instances before. I know I've been at events when like a female with long hair will say that somebody pulled her hair, but there was no one behind her. And then you catch it on a camera. You actually see the hair moving. Like you see the knee-jerk reaction to the feeling of it. So, which is why I love the question Tony asked you in the beginning and then your answer to it for a way that you saw one going from one category to the other. Because that would be the way you would be able to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. Vinyl puppies.
Oh, my favorite.
Vinyl?
Depends on what kind of puppies we're talking about here.
The good ones.
Okay, let's see what this one is then. Because I know what my idea of good puppies are.
Not those puppies.
Oh my God, Crystal.
Ron just got on.
I just got it. I was like, wait a minute. Isn't this the guy who wanted to keep it PG a minute ago when someone else was saying it?
I'm like, you see, I'm flushed and blushing.
All right, here's that clip.
So Anthony and Shayna have 2 cute dogs. Can you tell us one of their names? Is that it? That's what I heard. Yes, one of their dogs' names is Pickles. She's our mascot. And now, well, I don't want to say the other dog's name.
Can you say the other dog's name?
No way! Pudding. Thank you very much.
That was awesome.
That was clear too.
Come on, y'all.
Pudding?
Pudding.
Pudding and pickle.
Apostrophe, no G.
But I mean, just the fact that they got it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only once, but twice.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the odds, the statistics of that happen. Come on, pickles and pudding.
Yep.
You could have showed me those dogs, and I never would have guessed that.
Well, that's why I didn't want. At first, I was like, something caught me because I was gonna say Puddin's name, but then I was like, I'm not gonna even say the name. So when she asked it, and that was immediate, and it came through so clear that, and some of people in the room didn't know Anthony and Shayna's dog's name. So me, Anthony, and Shayna would like start bugging out because we're like, Puddin. It didn't even say pudding or like it was pudding. Like
it was right on.
It was. We were floored.
Well, this also brings up the debate that we've had before: is are they getting the information from our thoughts, or are they from the energy that we're putting out from our thoughts, or are they getting the energy from the knowledge that they have, knowing that that's what the dogs' names are? That's the best part. Is it opens up a door of possibilities to go 80 different directions to try and figure out how they're communicating with us.
Yeah.
And I have to say this, we've been at the Ritz doing the residency there for 3 years. And I mean, Anthony could give his opinion. It was probably the most active night that we have been there thus far.
Yeah, that was intense.
Like I said before, it was nonstop all night, guys, that we were just like, it's so overwhelming. But we also attribute it to, we do investigations there most of the times when the theater is dark. So meaning that there's no performances because it is a live theater. We've been experimenting with a theory that Anthony and I have that the theater after a live show will generate more activity, energy for the and it was just how happened to be the day after of Halloween. So it was All Saints Day, the Day of the Dead. I'm gonna mispronounce it because I was looking it up today, and I it's pronounced Samhain. And so it was like all those three together, plus the theme of Dracula. It was just, I think that's what lent to the night being so active. But that by far, like when I was going through the footage, I kept getting chills every time I was doing the editing stuff because I'm like, how can you deny? How can you deny that that's going on? You know.
Well, and then on top of all of that, on top of all the mother of all bombs, trigger objects, then you had everybody in the room that were seasoned paranormal investigators with good intent. On top of that, you had the perfect storm.
Right. It's all about the energy.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool.
And about pudding and pickles.
That's right. We can't forget pudding and pickles.
Both categorically snacks.
Yes.
Well,
we already established we like.
we had a rule when we got our dogs. They were like, we're going to go with all food names. So we actually have a running list of dog names now.
And so everybody knows I usually get to review the clips before the show. Mm-hmm. So I knew what kind of puppies they were. But I didn't get to review them this time because, Anthony and Frankie, because this is new stuff and nobody's ever seen this before, they sent it to me last minute for the show, and I waited for it because, he said nobody had ever seen it before. So I didn't get a chance to see these either. So that's why, nice. And yes, Audra was kicking me under the table. At least once a show, or I have not had a good show.
That's right.
It's never very hard, though, I promise.
This is like,
clarify here.
Yeah, that's not a statement you want to hear.
No. No, that's not what you want to hear come out of your wife's mouth. That's
not at all. It's not very hard.
Oh, and there's a pup right there.
So
we're off the rails again.
Anthony, you've learned by now that there's no maturity in this show at all. Right?
That's fine.
It works out perfect for us.
And to give you guys a life, so Audra, everybody says she's an angel, she's a Disney princess. She is because she deals with me. I'm going to give you one example before we go to the next clip. Audra decorated the entire house for Christmas this weekend. And on one of the chairs, she has these two little Christmas bears, a Santa Claus and a Mrs. Claus bear, and she set them on the one chair kissing each other sweetly.
Oh, that's cute.
By the time she came back at about 7 p.m. tonight, they weren't kissing anymore.
Uh-oh. The same.
How dare you defile my bears?
Oh.
All right, so we'll go to the next. That's why I get kicked all the time, guys.
Anthony, did you want to megs that real quick?
Yeah, sure. No, this is a quick and easy one. So there were two questions. The first question was, we have two dogs, and the replies, there were two. There was first a woof, and then there was pickles. So that's 3 points right there for the question and the two answers. Then the other question was, there's another dog, and the answer was puddin'. So it's a point for the question, a point for puddin'. So that whole clip would have gotten a MEGS score of 5, and it was just based on the questions and the empirical occurrences.
So I got to ask you a question, Anthony, on your MEGS score.
Yeah.
So like the first clip scored a 13 because the amount of questions, the amount of timing, relevance, and accuracy, right, and the answers.
Correct.
So why would your scale not increase in point level of the accuracy like this one?
Or the difficulty.
The difficulty.
As far as like the difficulty of the questions, or
correct?
Because I feel like the difficulty is can be subjective. I think that also I try to keep everything simple so that if having something like a level of difficulty for questions and trying to incorporate that in the whole point system, now you're creating a scale instead of basically making tally marks. And it's just further, like, I wanted this to be nice and simple so that if someone were to get like a quick how-to from me, they could immediately apply it.
Gotcha.
I wanted to make it very accessible for everyone to do, so that way there's very little, basically, so like less people would have to be coming up to me and asking, okay, so did I do this right or did I do that right? It's like, I'm just keep it simple, stupid.
Gotcha.
With me being stupid, so that's.
So you're standardizing the process in order to not make some of the scoring vague.
Correct. And
I like that.
Even with like the anecdotal stuff, because I remember I was discussing it and someone had said, well, why don't you have different scoring levels for anecdotal stuff? And I was like, well, you can't validate someone's experience. You can't say that my experience is more relevant than yours, as yours is more relevant than mine.
Right.
So I try to keep it nice and simple so that anything like difficulty with empirical stuff or questions or a more valid anecdotal situation, I wanted to avoid that altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense. In regards to Chris's point, though, because you were given a point for the question, you were given point for the answer. If
Correct.
the answer comes back incorrect, do you ever deduct points? So I think where Chris was trying to go was, how do you balance one clip against another then based on the MEGS score? And knowing that if they ask 6 questions, they've already got 6 points, regardless of whether the answer was correct or not, versus a clip that asked 2 questions but got both questions answered correctly. I think that's probably what you were looking at.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, yeah. So thank you for rephrasing it. No, I like the questions because then it makes me think too, because sometimes I come up with these things and they make perfect sense to me and they go out there into the world.
I love the way you're doing it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I don't necessarily count an incorrect answer. If I really wanted to explore that further, I could still argue. I could still give it a point if it's something that's loud and clear. But I usually only grade the correct answers, not necessarily the incorrect ones. So like we've had things where we've had things like, let's say with the questions of how many spirits are in the room or whoever it might be. I can't validate that, but it's still a relevant answer. Like if they answered like, if they answered like Webster's dictionary to how many people are in this room, then that doesn't really match up with it. But if they throw out a number, or if they throw out something along the lines of where it sounds like a response, or it could be a relevant response, then it would be acknowledged and get scored a point.
Gotcha. So you use the same principles like as an algebraic equation. So your variables are your timing, your relevance, and your intelligence.
Correct.
Right.
That's a great way of putting it. Thank you. I would have never thought of it that way.
And Anthony's doing MEGS clip by clip, but like when we did when just this room alone, he megged from start to finish. So which is what we got back was probably, I mean, Anthony could say till date, like
it was like a score of like 46 or something.
Right. It was like, holy shit, you know.
But you could see, like, when you put a number on it and you know how the system works, you could see, like, just how much is going on. And I think that's just the simplicity of it makes it very accessible for everybody.
Okay. All right. Here's the next clip. Final light show. Here we go.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Can you turn it off, please? Can you turn it all the way off? Okay. All the way off. Pull away from one way. Thank you.
I heard that too. He's like, wait, what? Whoa. Look.
You like playing with the lights, huh? Thank you. Can you turn off the red one, please? Can you turn it all the way off?
Is your red one
Yeah. Can you turn all those lights on the floor again? No, thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you. Thanks. You're repeating me? Yep. How about the one on the floor? Can you do that one more time for us? Now you're just messing with me, aren't you? That's all right. We're here to have fun.
So what do you think about the performance that we just saw? You liked it? And the cat ball. Wow, it's super active in here today.
Oh.
This is insane.
We're just getting a whole light show.
Wow. That was accurate.
Can you tell from my excitement? I'm like, whoa, this is great.
I think Frankie should get 2 points for the whoa. That's 2 points, I think.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was really good.
It was like that the whole time we were in that room. I mean, what we sent you guys was a fraction of what how much time we spent there in that room.
It's a great room.
Well, and this is why when you go to like a private like Tala, when you start getting, I mean, the last investigation we were there, we got there at like 7:30 and left at 4:30 in the morning, and we only hit about a quarter of the hospital,
right?
Because we were getting so much activity in the areas that we were in, we were chasing it and never got to 4 other floors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I when we were there, when I was there with Todd and Carmela, we were like, yeah, we're not going to probably stay till like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. But we had, the time went by so fast because it was so massive and we were getting so much stuff that it like this night, it was like hard to leave because we didn't want to like miss something because they were so anxious to communicate with us that night. So. Yeah, me, Anthony, and everybody were just like, okay, we got to go eventually. Like, we got to go shop at least, get some time to rest and get home and stuff. But it was fascinating that night. Fascinating.
Did you want to score that one too, Anthony, or did you just want to show us an example of how you score them?
I'll score it. Yeah, I actually did it right here. I actually counted the lights going 11 times, and I think I might be off by about 2 or 3. I think it was actually 2 or 3 more times in addition to that. We had 1, 2, 3, 4. I counted 4 questions, and there were actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 responses. 7 which were I want to say 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Some responses were verbal, some were responses with the lights. So with all that, and again, unfortunately, there was nothing anecdotal happening, but that actually got a score of 22. Just based on, again, 7 answers, 4 questions, and 11 either flashlights going off or the cat ball going off or the floor lights going off.
Wow. And you do a MEGS score for every clip that you guys have.
We actually, anything that we present, it would be me scoring the clip or any of us scoring the clip. Otherwise, we could also just expand it to the entire investigation also and score the entire investigation. And if that were the case, then it wouldn't just include the footage. Like if sometimes I'll make notes of something that I might have felt, or someone else tells me later on I felt something in this room or whatever it might be, that gets applied to the anecdotal score as well.
Wow. Good Lord. Yeah. So do you do double review, or do you guys do review together so you can score it while he's looking for evidence?
So
both. Jesus.
A lot of the time,
flip and review.
Yeah. It's a lot of legwork, but I think it's worth it, and it's just because I do get a little particular about like tracking all the variables and everything.
Wow.
Blame the law enforcement background.
Yeah, for fuck's sake.
But I'll score something, and then I'll tell Frankie like, "Hey, check out these clips," and then he'll get like this like sloppily written worksheet that I did, and I'll say, "Hey, maybe you heard this, maybe you didn't. What do you think?" And we'll go back and forth like that.
Mm-hmm. So without getting too deep, Anthony, since you protect your identity a little bit, so what division are you currently working in?
So right now, I'm working in a training division. I did about 10 years. I did about 10 years just on the streets, running around in the car, chasing the radio.
Yeah. Okay. Judging by your analytical side, training is a great position. That's a fantastic opportunity for you. Not only that, with the amount of field experience you have, there's no better trainer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. So the next clip is final names. So here we go.
What's your name?
You didn't hear that, did you, Frankie?
What?
You didn't hear that, did you?
There's a couple of names, but
I thought I heard the name that usually comes up here.
Or Dana. Did you say the name Dana? Is your name Dana?
What? Yes.
Or Bruce? What did you hear? Howard. Jury's out if it's Harold or Howard. Oh, okay.
Well, let's turn on.
So if it's your name is actually Harold and we've been saying your name this whole time correctly, can you either light up one of the lights or turn the flashlights off?
Harold. Do you know Harold or BT referring to you? Maybe you know Harold. Okay. Thank you for that.
Maybe we've just been calling you the wrong name.
Have you been told you the wrong name? And you like something else? Let me know that you told you the wrong name. Shy. That's okay.
You guys communicate with us a lot. So we have some other friends that are walking around the theater. Can you maybe let them know you're there, or do you see them? Oh, jerks.
Wow.
And that's what was, for me, the wild part, because in watching the footage back, we were getting I don't want to say responses because they weren't responses at the time, but we were getting information from the communications before we would even ask the question. Like, it said stage, and I was asking Spirit to communicate with other investigators that were in the building, and at that time they were in the main theater, which is where the stage was. And to go back to what Anthony was saying from the first clip, the name Bob that came through, we were like, Bob is not a name that there's no one at the theater that kind of like works there. But then the weekend after this footage event, where this footage is coming from, we had Father Bob at the Ritz, which was a wild experience in itself, because it came from a different lens with communicating with Spirit that day. So we've been finding like we're getting more of that stuff happening to us too.
Wow. So, Anthony, I want to say something real quick. I want to clarify my last statement. Guys, when Dan did describe what division he was in, and I said that's perfect for him, I want you guys to understand that I meant that as the highest compliment. What? I'm sorry?
I didn't think you were insulting me.
Okay. No, I just want to make sure our audience knows too. The reason I say that is because chasing the radio patrol is the most dangerous job in law enforcement, right?
Yeah.
It is the most absolute dangerous job in law enforcement. And the person that is training future officers or guys that are going to be out there doing what he did for the amount of years that he did it, there is no better person to be analytical and let them know what they have to face than the man that's done it himself. So I meant that as the ultimate compliment. I just want to make sure our audience understands that. Okay.
Thank you again.
Yeah. And now that we're clarifying things, when you said puppies before,
Abos, gazungas, etc.
Go ahead and kick him. It's my fault.
I want to say so much, but there's ladies present, and I was trained better than that. So,
oh, don't let her. We're going to visit her family in 2 days. They're way worse than I am.
well,
Now we all want to come.
It's a hoot.
Be prepared to be offended and bring an extra liver.
For sure.
Not lying.
Christoph.
All right, Anthony, you want to score that one, bud?
Sure. So I might have missed a couple of things here and there just because I was listening and trying to watch what was going on. But I counted 1, 2, 3, 4 relevant questions. And there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 empirical occurrences, whether it was lights going off or relevant responses. And then I know there was at one point early on in the clip where Shayna pointed something out, but I wasn't sure if it was in the clip. So in that case, I counted that as anecdotal because I didn't see it on there. But if I play it back again and I saw it, then it would slide over to empirical at that point. But just in the moment, it got a MEGS score of 15 because, again, 4 questions, 9 empirical occurrences being the relevant responses or lights going off, and 1 anecdotal item that I didn't see tracked on the screen, but I could be mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sorry, I blasted through that, but if you need me to go through it more or further expand on it, I'm happy to do it.
No, you're good. I think so. You are the perfect person to do the MEGS scoring on your reviews, and I'll explain it why. Because the only time that your MEGS score becomes subjective is if you miss something in the clip.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you right now, y'all. This man doesn't miss much.
I try not to.
So the level of subjectivity goes down to slim to none. So
I try to hold a high standard for it. I don't want to, you know, if I'm putting this system out there, I want to make sure that it works and people can appreciate it. I know that there was a question asking me about the system or a system or applying classifications. I didn't see whose name was on it, but if you could ask it again and maybe elaborate on it more, I can give you a better answer.
Was it Paul Scott? Yeah, there it is.
Do you have a system classification that you use for all the different encounters based on the variables you collect? I mean, ultimately, MEGS is the system. I don't know if that's the proper answer that you're looking for. I'll shamelessly plug right now for Ron, but if you check out his latest book, After
here it comes.
There's a chapter in there that I wrote as a how-to for anyone who wants to get a better understanding of the whole system itself.
And for clarification, guys, the book wasn't that far away. Ron's just short.
That's true. It is. Prepared to be mesmerized.
No. Trying to point to it, but it's not working. There I am.
You megmerized.
Yep.
Mesmerized.
Mesmerized.
But yeah, if people have questions, a lot of the answers are in there.
And a couple of the photos from the Ritz is you explaining.
Oh yeah, that's me.
When you spoke on it at the Ritz Theater.
And what's the title of that book again, Ron?
This is Afterlife Contact, A New Perspective.
And where can it be found?
Right over there.
In my bookshelf.
Yeah.
I've got one next to my bedstand too.
And then there's that one too.
Oh, look at that.
Yay.
I know all those people.
So yeah, we have a lot of fun at the Ritz Theater. So yeah, it's a great chapter. It definitely gives you some insights into where the thought process is behind the whole system.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very much so.
And that can be found on Amazon, guys, since Ron was too shameless to do that.
All the books are on Amazon. Much appreciated.
That's this one, right?
And then Frankie's in book 4, Paranormalization. Anthony M's in book 5.
Yep. Talking about PDR, which is what I was telling you guys about before, about parapsychological desensitization, restructuring, and it's basically taking trauma from the back of the brain using bilateral stimulation to the front of the brain. So the theory is when you do that, people can bring up the trauma stuff and then reprocess it. I do dogs as well.
There's some trauma right there.
You said trauma and the PTSD.
I'm not coming all the way out to Arizona, but the beauty of telehealth is, I'm here for your dog if they need it.
Tranquilizers work just fine.
That too, yeah. When all else fails, when the clinical stuff doesn't, just whatever makes it work.
That's funny.
All right, so the next clip is Final Curtain. Here we go.
Awesome captures, but that's just a cool theater.
So that was just something that Anthony was like, we gotta give them. That was like maybe 2 weeks before the other footage that we've been showing you guys, and we were all scattered out, and we had a team doing a private there. Some of them left, and there was about maybe 4 of us, and we tend to do that. Like at the end of the night, we'll sit in the theater just quiet, no one saying anything, and there's a gentleman, one of our guest investigators there. He was sitting in the front. Nobody was saying anything, and we just happened to all be looking that way. And you hear him snap his fingers because he was like, "I see it." And I got up, tried to debunk it, went behind it. Where that curtain is, if you pulled that back, it's just a wall behind it. So there's nothing that, like, at first I was like, was it a rodent or something like that? We're in a theater, but it was so high. It was too high. It almost looked like someone pulled the curtain back and let it go.
Yeah.
So let me point a fact about performance curtains that a lot of people don't know. Okay. They are weighted curtains, and they're weighted specifically to distribute the weight evenly across the whole curtain. And the reason they do that is it's all about presentation, right? So the only way you're going to get that curtain to stay pretty the whole time is if the weight is evenly distributed on that weighted curtain, right? So if a breeze coming in back behind that wall would have caused that, more than just that portion of the curtain would have moved because the weight distribution is evenly distributed across that curtain.
That's a great point, Chris. That's a great point.
So you notice none of the other folds moved. The bottom of the curtain didn't move. The top of the curtain didn't move. The only portion of the curtain that moved was that one piece that looked like somebody took their hand and peeked out.
Yeah.
And we constantly, that's a challenge at the Ritz because since it is a working theater, the sets change. Everything in the theater changes. So we kind of don't know what we're going to get when we walk in. So like when things like that happen, Anthony and I will really make a conscious effort to see what we can do to, debunk things, if you want to use that term, to try to figure it out if it's really going on. And because there's so much fluctuation, like sometimes there's more wind throughways backstage and all that, but it was, they were doing like Jesus Christ Superstar. So the set was very minimal. And I had to go backstage just to see, figure it out. And when I pulled the curtain back, I'm like, oh shit, there's a wall here. It's a wall. Right. There's no way even if somebody was standing behind there, let's just say, and pulling it back, if they pulled it back, you would see whoever was behind the curtain. So that was wild.
Well, and there's a very distinctive feature about these curtains because they're evenly distributed. They have to stay in a certain design, so it gives that presentation. It looks good. You can see it when you ever seen a play or a show, or when they draw back the curtains, and the drawback is about 3/4 of the way up, right? And you get that constant drip in the middle, but the bottom stays perfectly straight. Mm-hmm. That's because they've got one thing hooked there that pulls it back evenly. And you can see that the weight distribution is perfectly balanced on the entire curtain, because if the weight distribution wasn't, when they pulled it back, the bottom wouldn't pull straight on both sides.
Right.
So there's no physical way a wind on those performance curtains on a stage can blow back just a certain section. If there's a strong enough wind, it's going to take a pretty good wind to move those curtains. It's going to move most of the curtain. You're going to see it travel down the curtain as the wind comes through. It's not going to be just one little section.
Right. And behind stage, it's almost like a U that goes behind the stage. There's no windows. There's nothing like that. We don't really get a lot of draft back there. And if it was, definitely not enough for that occurrence to happen.
Well, no, because they have to soundproof the stage, right?
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Damn chairs hitting the desk. It's pissing me off. But the reason they do that, they close off the back so there's no sound contamination coming from the back. Because you get performers backstage and stuff like that. If they had ways for sound to travel, it would ruin the performance.
Ruin the show. Yeah. Yep.
That was an awesome clip.
Mm-hmm. And that's an easy one to score too. So.
I get the 10. I'm sorry. It's a 10.
Wait,
Hands across the board.
now.
Is that Anthony Seeker's Chronicles Paranormal Historians?
It is.
That's him.
So his ears must have been ringing this weekend because I was telling Todd and Carmela how when Anthony comes, there's two places you will always find him. One up in the blue dressing room waiting for the door to open for hours, or in the theater with his camera solely focused on stage left of the theater.
Right.
Whereas that he, like, every time he comes there, he sees something in that area. So yeah.
And that's the opposite side of where this happened, right?
Opposite side of where this happened. Yep. But Anthony, you could talk about what you experienced on that side that Anthony you were watching.
So yeah, other Anthony. That night that we got most of tonight's footage from, we were in the main theater area doing EVP stuff, and I'm talking to Frankie, and I'm kind of facing stage left, and just out of the corner of my eye, I actually saw something move in that general area. One of those things that, like, it was a very obvious sort of movement in the doorway for stage left. It was just ironic because we were talking about it, and we were like, wait, that's the area that Anthony Simonelli is always watching, where he's seeing things.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And for our audience, stage left is from the performer's view.
Right.
So if you're standing on stage looking toward the audience, stage left, stage right. Of course, you're seeing it opposite because of the damn camera.
I would be seeing it looking to the right since I was facing the stage.
Right. So anybody facing the stage, if somebody says that the actor's coming in or the performer's coming in at stage left, they're entering from the audience's right.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, what'd you score that one, Anthony?
That got a very all-important singular numero uno.
That was
there was nothing prompting a response or anything like that. Just reverse those numbers, Audra. Instead of 1 and 0, 0, 1. Right there.
Oh. That was really cool.
That was awesome.
And Chris gets 10 points for knowing more about curtains than any one person probably should.
Don't ask me.
That was great that he pointed that out, though. I mean,
It's amazing. Who would know
But it's
that?
100% true because prior to in a former life, I was in theater. So I worked for a New Jersey Performing Arts Center. So everything Chris is saying is how it's known in theater. You know, just hard to explain that to people because if they don't, you know. But thanks, Chris.
Oh, no problem. And since Audra had to point it out, I was in a show choir, a tux choir, and I was in drama in high school amongst football, weightlifting, and track. And I was Bill Sykes in Oliver, and I was Frankie Avalon in Grease.
Stop. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yep.
No comments from the peanut gallery. I don't want to hear it.
And a curtainologist.
Currentologist. The next chapter in Ron's book.
Yes.
I can just hear it in the crowd now. That's the meanest drama guy I've ever seen.
Curtain for you. Curtains, see? You'll get yours. Your friends are crazy.
That's right. Now, speaking of the Blue Room, that's our next clip.
Nice.
Oh,
So here we
cool.
ADP session, Ritz Theater, Blue Room time is 12:06. So we're going to talk to you one more time, and Sheila's going to ask a question first.
Is your name Harold?
Were you here in the 70s?
Or is it Howard?
Hold it.
Do you like to hang out in this room because of the girl?
He's got an accent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Howard.
Howard.
Yeah, so Howard, real quick, is you know what? I'm not going to tell you. You guys have to come to the Ritz and meet Howard yourself.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so ran into a little bit of a connection issue with that where I wasn't able to fully tally everything. I know that first there was one question. I wasn't sure if Frankie, was that first response noted before the, or was there a response from?
It was. We were asking if Howard was his name, and then
right.
Howard,
and then it yelled Howard. Okay, and then it was me, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So there were two questions, and let's see, there were two questions, and they both got answers. The first question, is it Harold or Howard? And we got the Howard yelled at us. And then there was the other question, do you hang out in this room because of the girls, I think?
Yep.
And the answer was, of course. So that would have gotten a total score of 4, because it was 2 questions, 2 empirical responses. Basic arithmetic. I do want to point out something. I don't know how well it came over, because, again, I had a connection issue while I was playing. But if you notice, it said Howard, or to me it sounds like Howard, especially on the voice recorder. And it doesn't always translate well when you try to record it and play it back for people, whether you try to record it with your cell phone recorder or go directly into a computer. On the voice recorder itself, when I play it, you can clearly hear 2 syllables, but on this, it kind of sounds more singular. But the really strange thing was that you heard the Howard, and then it bled right into something that I was saying, where you heard my voice. Where I wasn't sure if maybe it would be a digital anomaly with the recording, where it might not be paranormal, or maybe it is paranormal in supporting a theory that I have, where there might be some manipulation of the actual sound waveform to get the sound that they want, or it was just something so loud going into the microphone that it might have overtaken my voice and basically blocked it out.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a term in early direct radio voice. I know Dr. Anibal Cardoso wrote about it a few times. I'm trying to remember the term, but it was used, I think popsters was one of them. Popser, popsters. They were the voices that would emerge between sounds or other words. Sometimes, like it would be sneaking in, and it would rely upon, I guess, the resonance of other sounds. So right. In that instance, perhaps using sounds that you were making or were beginning to make to kind of like almost piggyback in.
Yeah, I think that's what it might be, but I can't be 100% sure, but it's just, I thought it was really interesting because, usually with the recorder, you'd be able to hear both sounds. If you had recording 2 simultaneous things, you would still be able to hear both of them to some degree. But with that one, you had the EVP sound already overtaking the partial word that I was saying.
Right.
Yeah. Which we've talked about this on other shows where we hear the EVP where it sounds like it's on the surface of the recording, and then we also have other EVPs that sound like it's behind the surface of the recording. Right. Kind of a similar effect to where this sound of the recording where you guys are speaking is somewhere in between. And you've got one coming up front, and then you've got one in the background that's kind of muffled a little bit because it's behind the recording. Yeah. Yeah.
We had that happen at the house in between doing Staticom. The voice said Brad Cooney, but it piggybacked off of, and just before Lourdes was saying that she heard Brad, and then she went to say the last name, and it kind of like, so it's almost like a second ahead of her saying the same thing.
Right.
It's almost overlapping.
Yeah, it's kind of like 2 ships passing in the night, I guess.
Yeah, well, now it's romantic. Now we need Race Hobbs' voice to come back in and go.
Gary, what?
What did you say you thought that name of that term was?
Popsters, I think, was one of the terms she used.
Okay. I was just curious because I know there's a term. I'm going to probably screw it up. Portmanteous or something like that means something along the lines of words in between. But I was talking to you that was okay. All right. Well,
there's more than one term for it too, so that may be the other one.
But this is a great teachable moment for our audience because they've heard us talk about it numerous times on our show about how you determine an EVP when you're not quite remembering who could have spoke during the time of the investigation when you caught that voice, where we've talked about it coming to the surface above the recording, above the voices of the normal recording and behind the voices. after years and years and years of review, you get used to hearing those either fall behind or fall in front. And you can tell it's not a portion of the actual recording, and it's also embedded either on top or behind the recording.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Chris.
And I have to say, when it's the law enforcement officer and Anthony comes out when we're doing EVP sessions, like you can't fucking fart. And Anthony will be like, Frankie? Yeah. So it's like you could hear, and when we're going around doing questioning, Anthony will point at you when he's ready for you to ask a question.
He's
Just to give it enough like breathing room. So we have very strict policy around EVP recordings.
And if you get out of line, I will tag the noise. I'll be like, oh, that's Frankie making noises again, you know?
Yes. And the first time will be nice, but the second time will be very authoritative.
So Anthony is the Cherie of the EVP.
Yep.
Listen, you gotta crack that whip. You gotta keep people in line.
Yeah.
You guys have to go back. You have to go back and watch the show when the 6 of us were here in North Carolina and we did the Montgomery House, which is a location, an 1830s plantation home that Audra and I control. The 6 of us were there, and Lourdes, Audra, or was it Tony? 3 of us were in one room.
It was.
Audra and Cherie were in the room next to us, and we were And there's a clip where where Cherie's in one room and we're in the other room, and we're both doing EVP sessions. And you hear Cherie go, "Be quiet, we're doing an EVP session." And then you hear me go, "What the fuck you think we're doing?"
She did the same thing at Solo Mansion, way up on the 3rd floor. She tells us to tell the group, we're going to do EVP, so let them know not to talk. So Ron and I are literally telling the rest of the people they're going to be doing EVP sessions up there. So whatever you do, don't. We're doing EVP up here.
I can hear you guys.
It happened. Yep.
What I love is Anthony. You can tell that he's been in a situation in the field where he's got one side of the story, he's got the other side of the story, and both of them are trying to tell their side of the story at the same time. And he's like, you already. It's their turn to speak.
Yep. Right. One at a time.
Yep.
You had your turn. I know Raul had a question also. I think it was something like, are there extra points if people hear multiple things?
1 point, Raul. I got in trouble, so.
So 1 point.
1 point.
Just 1 point.
But it would just be one, but because people would be hearing so many different things, it would just get slid over to anecdotal because it might not necessarily be loud and clear, and you would just list all of the possibilities.
So I've got a question for you, Anthony.
Sure.
You've got multiple investigators in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And we have had plenty of investigations where one person caught an EVP on their recorder and another person caught a different EVP on their recorder. Sometimes it's multiple recorders catch different EVPs. Does that add to your MEGS, or do you only do it per clip?
On yours.
So it would be per clip. So like there was we actually did an investigation. Ron was at also with at the Columns Museum, and we did a really cool experiment where we had like 4 DR60s, and we were in a room that had the American flag that was placed under Abraham Lincoln's head shortly after he was assassinated. And
His blood's still on the flag.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I heard Ron say this before.
Yeah.
So
and there were responses to all the questions, but not all the recorders picked up the same responses, which was really cool. So in that case, it would be an analysis of each and every recorder or each and every recording. That way, each and every response is acknowledged.
Okay, but
it's the same session. So.
Yeah, I'm going to throw a variable in there.
Sure.
You ask the question on your clip, you don't get a response. Mm-hmm. That's timed, relevant, and intelligence. But somebody else picks up the response to your question. So that doesn't it doesn't correlate. There's
I get what you're saying. I get exactly what you're saying. Yeah. So in that case, it would be the application of MEGS to the footage on the recorders, and not necessarily the overall experience. So I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of explain this better. So like right now tonight, I'm MEGSing footage, not necessarily the investigation or the experience itself. So if the majority of this footage came from Frankie's body camera, if I were to pull my body camera and look at it that way, my body camera is going to be picking up different things. So in that case, I would be doing an analysis of two different pieces of footage ultimately, not necessarily the overall experience or investigation. So
Right.
now, if we were to present the entire investigation to a private client or a client in general, then I would have to acknowledge every single thing on both recordings, and that would contribute to the overall score.
Okay, gotcha.
I thought I'm going to give you an interpretation of what I thought Chris was asking, which I think maybe itself would be a good question. So
Sure.
In that instance, right, if there was if that night, because I was there, if on one of the questions, like he said, you asked the question, and on your DR60 there was no response, but on my DR60 there was a response.
Right.
Do you give the point for the question to both recordings or only to the one that got the response? Because in that instance, my clip doesn't have me asking, it has you asking, but you got the answer.
Right. Then it would be to the one that got the response.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did that answer? I'm like.
So the clip with the question that got the response would get a higher MEG score than the clip that didn't get the response.
It absolutely would.
And then overall investigation all put together would get a higher score than all the separate clips put together.
Yep, you got it.
Perfect.
You got it.
Right. So in that instance, that question and answer session, I would get 2 points for your question, and then the answer that came through, you would get 1 point for your question, but no answer.
Well, in my case, it would be no point for the question because there was no answer. The question is only validated by the answer.
Got it. Okay.
And the answer is only validated by the question. So it goes
2 on one, 0 on the other.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Got it.
Perfect. All right. Next clip, main theater. Here we go.
So if you have something you want to say, you can say it into that device. I just put it onto the stage. Yep, you can talk right into it. Say whatever you want to say.
I had a voice. You still do, fucker.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it's.
So let me guess. That's a 2.
Yes. Fantastic. Fantastic.
I think I got this.
Yeah. Like I said, I try to keep it simple, but I think it's relevant because maybe that was coming from a performer, you know? Maybe someone who's used to being on stage, someone who is used to having an audience, you know?
Right.
So maybe they were like, "Oh, I finally have this opportunity to say something. I had a voice. I had this outlet, and now I don't have it as often."
And just to speak on that, like we have some spirits, namely Howard, who is very wants to make himself known. He speaks over other spirits, especially the women. So it could have been one of our female spirits that we were told from Brandy Wells, who's a medium, you know, there's this male presence, but he tends to dominate the conversation. To acknowledge him, tell him to step back so that other spirits can come through. So maybe it was something to that effect, like now I finally have a voice, to talk about some of the stuff, my experiences here.
Yeah. So. Howard finally shut up.
Right.
Right.
Shut the fuck up.
Right.
We gotta tell him. We actually have to tell him that sometimes. Bro, like chill out.
Yeah. Back off. You'll have your chance.
Yeah. So what's funny is you can add culture to that. So Otter and I noticed that Howard, when he responded, had a distinctive
inflection.
Yes, inflection in his voice. He had an accent, right? It was more of a New York, Boston type accent.
Sounds, in Rocky, his trainer.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's exactly who I picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Burgess Meredith.
But you also tie
yes, thank you.
everybody also stereotypes with the voice and that accent that they're a very dominant person. So somebody from Boston/New York is going to be a very overbearing person, right? That's what everybody sees as the stereotype. Where when you hear Howard's voice, you can imagine that he is probably a dominant person and the rest of them can't speak.
Right.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I like that the interpretation thing, which spoke to the subjectivity mentioned earlier, that Anthony said, because that could have been I had a voice, meaning that when I was incarnate, I had a voice. It could have also meant that I had a platform, I mattered. You know what I mean? I had a voice, like I had a say in things. It could have been, metaphorically speaking. So that's good, because a lot of times with context, you either go based on the other information or the rest of the sentence, and sometimes you don't have that.
Right.
Right.
Well,
so
it also goes to interpretation of evidence too. People have to remember when they're doing an investigation, some of the responses you get are relative to the location that you're at. So when you have an artist that was a performer, when he says, "I used to have a voice," that can, as an artist or somebody that has the mentality of an artist, I used to have a voice. I used to be able to project. I used to be able to express my feelings in my performances, or I used to be able to sing in my performances. I had a voice. Right. Compared to somebody saying you're in a hospital and somebody says you get a recording that says I had a voice, might be a different interpretation. Like, okay, so you were in here for a throat ailment and you couldn't speak anymore. Right.
Right.
All right.
So timing, remembrance, and intelligence also pertains to where you're at in the location too.
And we have a theory about the risk, because we'll have people come in, especially mediums, and they'll say, did anybody get murdered here, or very like dark stuff. But it's our theory. It's just a theory that spirit can take on themes of like the performances that are going on there.
Oh, yeah.
So like it may, like if you're getting something like murder or something. We know from the historical record that there was no murder, that there was no fires or anything like that. But there's they have some
performance.
Right, themes, like they had color purple there, so the vibe is going to be different than when they had heathers there. You know what I mean? So it's like they take on that whatever energy that the performance is kind of like themed at going for. So
and you also got to remember, as a performer too, if they did a show and got a bad review or the audience didn't like it, they could also view that as I got murdered because nobody.
I got murdered in the press. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can you guys hear the cat? Audra has this 14-year-old cat that is completely. Frankie, you should do an evaluation on this damn cat.
I would be happy to.
The damn thing out of nowhere just starts going. That's what she's doing right now.
It's walking.
Unfortunately, what I do, guys, you're probably not going to see a lot of that footage, because of the fact that I look at it the same way I would with like humans that I work with. I'm not going to film a session with a client, you know what I mean, and put it on Facebook and on the internet. I kind of have the same.
So you don't apply the MEGS score from Anthony to your patients.
No. There's a whole different scoring that the mental behavioral health. Yeah. So you're not going to see any of that stuff, unfortunately.
All right, we got 2 clips left, and they're both titled Main Theater. So here's the first one. There we go.
You seem to have liked talking into this. So we're gonna give you that opportunity again. Anything you want to say to us, please say it.
Chris is like 3.
That's it. Actually, Audra said it first.
And that's why we wanted you guys to have it. We wanted Anthony to show you how this works, because once you kind of get acclimated to it, it does become a little easier to do, It's like practice. It's like anything else, practice.
Tony. Sorry, I was just asking Tony. So I'm a little confused. So every time you do investigation, listen to the recorder, you count.
Yes, that's all it is.
Okay.
That's all it is. It's just counting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I gotta let you know, Anthony, you've ruined my reviews now because Audra will be sitting in the other room when I do reviews.
No.
And now I'm going to be on Audra, I got a 4. Get your ass in here. I got a 4.
It's going to be like a competition. You review it separately to see how close your scoring is in proximity to each other.
So
I'm
the
gonna make
system
up
you,
my own shit. So scores are gonna be higher.
that's fine. That's fine.
No, it's not, Anthony. No, it's not.
Another stupid question, maybe.
No stupid questions. No stupid questions.
All right. So what's the point of when you're reviewing and then you have to count? So what's the point of that? Isn't it extra work doing some counting instead of just, you listen, you just, annotate what's being said?
Well, before he answers, I think the point is to assign a value to it based off of.
You're correct. Yes.
Of the higher the number, indicating the amount of activity that occurred in each section, which makes perfect sense. The only part that I struggle with in regards to what you're asking is based on the different length of clips, based on the different amount of questions asked, activity that comes out of nowhere. But I mean, if in a 1 minute clip, if I literally rattled off 20 questions, that regardless of whether they answered, didn't answer, answered incorrectly, it would have a higher score than if 2 questions were asked.
Well, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Which then would seem like there's more activity, but in fact, there were just more questions.
So the only thing is the questions are only getting a point if there's an answer to them.
Okay.
So the question validates the answer, and it goes the other way too. The answer validates the question. So you could ask 75 questions, but if you only get one of those questions answered, then you just have a score of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought you were giving a point for every question.
No, because then it loses all credibility.
Right.
So it goes back to the algebraic equation philosophy in it. You've got your variables of timing, relevance, and intelligence. You can ask the question, but you can't come up with an answer to the solution if there's no timing, relevance, or intelligence to the answer.
The timing and relevance is a big part of it. Kind of like when we had the name Bob come out when the question was asked in one of the earlier clips. In a way, it did answer the question. It answered it incorrectly because we were asking, I believe, them to name the people who were present. So while that could be considered an answer, I don't necessarily count it as one because there was no relevance to the question.
Right.
It was only until the following week that Father Bob came by and was like, "Okay, well, that's interesting."
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But the score is only a small part of it because, like I said, if we were doing a private investigation and we were presenting this footage to someone, it wouldn't just be the footage and a number. There would still be notes that they would be able to look at so that there would be further explanation for the score.
Gotcha.
That's cool. It actually makes sense. Now I'm going to be counting shit. I seriously am. That's
well,
funny.
if you come down to the Ritz, I'll buy you a drink in advance for room.
I'm gonna need a drink. Thank you very much.
We'll take you to Los Jalapenos across the street.
It's not a bad thing that I'm counting shit because I'm doing it the way Anthony does it. The bad part is then she's going to create her own table, and she's going to come in here and look at it and go, "No, that's only a 4 on my scale."
Question
to Ron and Tony.
Uh-oh.
So can this be applied to Staticom?
Sure.
Absolutely. It has been applied to Staticom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, Staticom is mostly a dialogue. It's mostly questions and answers. So it could very easily, like, it could be applied to Staticom. It could be applied to any devices that you're using. It could be applied to working with a medium.
Like a digital recorder, like a straight EVP, you can apply that
And
to.
anything that's empirical that could be replayed where somebody else could get the same
Define
number
empirical.
counted.
I don't know that. It's very deep.
Empirical
English.
is something that can be perceived by you or by anybody else, meaning that it's either audible, visual.
It's usually footage.
Right. You could play the clip for anybody and they can identify what you're picking out. Where anecdotal is like we were talking about
Singular.
Somebody saying, "Oh, you know, I feel like my hair was pulled." You can't empirically.
You can't verify it.
Only they can. It was a subjective experience only to them, which is why I asked, have you ever had something go from anecdotal to empirical with some other evidence that was shown?
So,
Cherie, that's not a stupid question because I didn't know what it meant either.
It's new. It's a new
because
word.
it's not in our vernacular unless you're in like a field like Anthony where you're looking at evidence and situations. But I always say surround yourself in a room with people who are smarter than yourself because you're going to learn a lot more than you probably would anywhere else. So, but I totally did not know what that meant.
Thank you. I don't want to look stupid, but really.
No, not at all. I mean, I look stupid all the time, but it has nothing to do with it. You know what I mean? But yeah. So no,
thank you so much.
That's how we learn by asking questions. You know?
But I love the questions. I really do, because I know that sometimes I'll explain something and it makes perfect sense to me, and then I get someone like, "Wait a minute, how do you do this?" And I'm happy to answer any questions with this stuff.
That's why I'm quiet the entire show, because I'm trying to understand what are you guys talking about. What is this?
So
it takes practice. It takes that.
So a perfect example, sure, to help you understand is like the clip of the curtain moving.
Yeah.
If one person would have saw that and it wasn't caught on camera, that would have been anecdotal.
Correct.
And you can't measure it, you can't score it. But because it was caught on camera, then you can measure it under the MEGS scale, because then it becomes empirical, right?
Plus, plus it can be replayed. Anyone else can see it.
Yeah. It's
so
a simple.
This is also a method. A different method, right? It's a method, like because you're counting.
It's a method of calculating the value attached to a clip.
Right, through the validation of the timing, the relevance, and capturing it in a video or on audio. Yeah,
I'm learning
and
guys.
Anthony has a very, very well done PowerPoint presentation on MEGS that I'm sure we could send you guys. So this way, you know, because I even look at it now, it's like I have to refer back to it.
Hey, let's use the pop-up PowerPoint. I don't want to see it. If there's no animation to it, then I just get lost, and I'm just kidding.
We'll make it fun, Anthony, for you.
I'll update it with some cartoons and some animations. I'll be happy to do that.
There's some fade in, some bolds that pop, right?
Yeah.
Weighted curtains.
Yeah, the weighted curtains.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
It should be a good way of helping investigators determine. Oh, yeah. I wonder. That's a good point that Todd makes.
Mm-hmm.
Or was that Carmela? Because Todd sometimes puts Carmela's answer or questions on here to make himself better.
I'm going to say it was Carmela.
That's right. So he's actually got a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Pop that back up again, because my brain just shut off. So activity at a location at a certain time of year is more active. Have you ever applied MEGS to a seasonal chart to see when the spike of energy is?
Put it in a spreadsheet.
Not necessarily seasonal. We were doing spreadsheets, but Excel makes me insane.
Yeah.
But there are worksheets that are made up where we actually have the times and dates.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mainly so that you could track back the dates to seasons. Or my big thing is time of the evening and the activity, or a time of day and the activity. See, like, oh, we've gotten more activity at this time or that time. Maybe that's something that we should further explore.
Yeah, that would be interesting because I could drop it into a pivot table and separate it by charts that would indicate time of year versus time of day versus.
Yeah.
Now you're talking my language, Chris.
Yeah. No, that would be good. You could also start spotting trends in data, because when you have variations at certain different times, but in both instances, you still had the through line of having the conductors that we always say add to paranormal, like running water, train tracks. You know, if you have those things that are ever present at a location, but you still have variations in the data showing spikes at certain times of day or year or whatever, then you look at those things that we give causal properties to for activity and go, maybe they're not causal, maybe they just help facilitate it, maybe they're conducive but not causal, maybe it happens to correlate, but you can no longer maybe say, well, this place is more active than that place because it has running water. Well, they both have running water underneath.
Right, and you could break it down to activity based on if there was a performance prior to the activity. You could also break it down if you had who your investigators were, and you could break it into a pivot table and break it down by who gets the higher responses. So who are the spikes, number of people. Oh man, don't get me started with
that's the law enforcement mind going.
Right. I was gonna say that's my family's law enforcement. That's just how their brains work. You know what I mean? Like, it's very analytical. And the great thing about it is, at the Ritz, we were the first team to come and investigate that place. No one. It's not saturated, so like like coming up with trends is important for us, because every time we go there, guys, it's a different experience. The more we go there, the more spirit lends to communication. So I think that's a great idea to track trends like seasonal and
if you still have that data on a spreadsheet, feel free to send it to me. I'd love to break it down.
We save everything.
Yes.
All right. So now that we're talking about data, we got one more clip.
I think Sheree might have a question.
Yeah, Sheree.
A quick question. So, on your investigation, first session, how long does it take for you guys to count? Like,
Really don't until after it's in review.
Yeah, that entire analysis is done once we have all of our footage and everything like that. It's not happening during the investigation.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Good question.
That is a good question. All right. So here is that last clip. Here we go.
All right, so we heard what you said, and we're going to do that, but we're going to just ask some more questions, and then we'll leave you to do whatever you want to do, but we'll be out of here.
Do you really want us to leave?
Are you the one walking around on stage? Can you say something for us? Were you the one that Anthony saw moving the curtain?
Anybody else want to ask anything?
Interesting.
2 yeses. Heard that, 2 yeses.
6.
6.
So 6, yes, going by what was actually listed.
Right.
But there was actually a second question, and there was an answer that I kind of heard that wasn't acknowledged. So based on what was shown, it would be a 6, but based on like what I saw or heard, it would actually be an 8.
Oh, so we're gonna have to watch that one again.
Even go back to the videos that me and Anthony were talking about this, like, you know, watching it. I'm the type of person that I'll keep watching it even after like it's all like prettied up and stuff. I was catching stuff like almost like every time I was watching it, like little nuggets that maybe I didn't catch the first time, but we wanted to kind of leave some room for viewers and stuff to kind of like, I heard this, I saw that, you guys didn't catch this, you know? So yeah.
All right, so let's watch that one again. Here we go.
All right, so we heard what you said, and we're going to do that, but we're going to just ask some more questions, and then we'll leave you to do whatever you want to do, but we'll be out of here.
Do you really want us to leave?
Are you the one walking around on stage? Can you say something for us?
Were you the one that Anthony saw moving the curtain?
Anybody else want to ask anything?
You're right. I got 8 that time too.
Yep. Yeah, it was were you walking around on stage and there was a very quiet yes.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, because the first time I listened to it, I was like, how do you score that one? Because which question did it answer the yes to? But there's a second yes in there.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so again, if you don't count that second question and answer, then it would be a 6, but further review says that that question was answered, so it's an 8.
All right.
We are learning new stuff.
Thanks for making my reviews take twice as long as the
We were just having that conversation before we got on air, so now I was waiting for. I didn't want to like scare you before the show happened, but yeah. Well, because we want to make sure that we're not like just willy-nilly putting stuff out there for the public to consume. There's tons of people who do that better than we do, so we just want to have like a different stance or a different take on it, more of, you know.
I got another question for both of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever place equipment in areas where nobody's at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you score that? There's no questions.
Right. So it would be because if there's any, usually if we have equipment set up in a place where people aren't, there would be like a trail cam or something like that available.
Right.
And that would then make it empirical evidence or whatever you want to call it.
So
yeah, like a lot of the times we will, like if we're investigating other areas and no one's in the theater, I leave like a spare body cam running the whole entire time and a trail cam. So yeah.
So the reason I asked that is because when Audra and I, and you'll see this when we join you guys at Tala in May, is both Audra and I are sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We'll never call ourselves mediums. We don't do that.
Right.
But we will walk the location, and where I feel the most energy and where we pick up the most, I will drop a piece of equipment.
Right.
We're not there asking questions the whole time.
Right.
But we get good, solid evidence in those locations. How would I score that? Because there's no question.
So there doesn't have to be a question to still get a score.
Mm-hmm.
It could still happen. Like for example, the stage curtain that was moving, there was no question or anything to prompt that.
Right.
But it was still captured as footage. So we'll review it, and it would just get 1 point for being empirical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for example, and I don't mean to keep dragging the show out, guys. I know we're over time, but
sorry.
So for example, no, it's not you guys. It's a fantastic show. That's why we're over time. But so say for example, we dropped. Audra and I went into the lobotomy section of Trans-Allegheny. We were the first group they led into that section.
Right.
We got so far, we started smelling dead body smell. We started getting sick to our stomach. We said, screw this. We're dropping a recorder right here. Mm-hmm. We got the sound of someone screaming no, the sound of a mallet, like during a lobotomy, and then a scream. But nobody was in that section at that time.
Right.
Do you count each sound? Or do you just count the one EVP?
No, it would be each separate sound. Because those are
so the no, the mallet, and then the scream, that's a 3-point.
Right. Yeah, because those are 3 very separate things. It's not just the one EVP, because then if you kind of follow that logic, then like if you record one video, then that entire video is just counted as one thing.
But you don't give it a point for relevance and intelligence for the area that it's in.
No, because so basically the whole thing with the questions is I kind of identify it more as like a query, that being some type of behavior that warrants a response. Okay. If I were to ask a question, that's definitely a way to do it. If I were to play time period relevant music in a specific place, expecting a response,
the music would get a point plus the response.
Right. Or if I were to drop a trigger object, that would warrant a response. Then it would be dropping the trigger object plus getting a response, and that would be a point for each thing.
Okay, so you have to look at the variables that lead to timing and result.
Correct.
Oh, perfect. Okay, now I completely understand it. You're in deep shit.
Reviewing it. That's all you, baby.
And if you want to count, if you want to count anything that you might have felt as a sensitive, that would be anecdotal. That would get a point for the anecdotal column.
Okay.
Well, thanks, guys. This was fun.
Hey guys, we have reached the point that we call in our show shameless plugs. This is the part of the show where you guys get to tell us where they can find you, where they can come to investigate and make money for the certain places that you guys run.
Right.
No shame whatsoever.
I never have shame in my game, brother. Give me a mic and a camera, and I'm promoting everything we fucking got. So we're gearing. We take a hiatus. Last weekend was our last event at the Ritz. We take a break so we can plan and schedule. So coming up in 2025, we have private investigations at the Ritz. We also are going to have more of those show and investigation combos. So you can look out for that. We're on social media, all the channels, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, at the ParaSight Experience. We're also on Eventbrite. Most of our investigations, both at the Ritz and other locations, will be there, but we post it on all of our social media channels. We want you guys to come out and experience the Ritz. Anthony and I don't make a profit. Our team does not make a profit on anything that we do. We want to, on public investigations outside of the Ritz, we just want people to have a fair shake, affordable cost in investigating. At the Ritz, everything that we make, every single penny goes right to the Ritz Theater Company to keep performing arts alive in our community here in New Jersey. And it's a wonderful, beautiful, historic place. It's got a vibe to it. It's its own energy. People who come love it. They keep coming back. We tell people we want you to keep coming back because you guys are helping us peel back layers every time that we come into the theater and she opens herself up to us. So and we got tons of collaborations that are coming up in 2025. We are officially collaborating with Full Moon Paranormal. When we are together, we do stuff. It's a vibe as well. So we call ourselves Paramoon when we're together. So we're going to be doing some really cool stuff. And then we're also branching out into doing some really cool, neat, creative kind of content that we're putting out there. I'm going to be doing a dark history podcast. Nicole at Full Moon, we're going to be doing Urban Explorers. Anthony, tell them about your 6 questions.
So yeah, I'll be doing a podcast called 6 Questions, where it's going to be the same 6 questions, but I really want to expand and elaborate and get really into the weeds with the people I interview. So instead of just rattling off questions and making it an interview, it's essentially me sitting down and having a friendly conversation with all the investigators I get to work with, but never get to have those conversations with.
Nice.
Sounds great.
And we're also gonna have a book club, and there's a bunch of stuff that we got coming out just to make it. There's people who do the investigation review stuff a lot better than we do. So we stay in our lane on what we do well, and that's what we hope people receive is what we are passionate about. So it's working with people like you guys. So we appreciate you guys. You guys have been very instrumental to our growth and our success. So we look forward to doing great things with you guys going forward.
Thank you so much for sharing that new thing. I learned a lot today.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And guys, I know I talk for the rest of the team when I say fantastic freaking show tonight. I mean, the niche that you guys bring to the paranormal community is huge. And what you guys do as a team is massive, and a way to analyze and measure and quantitate evidence captured at an investigation is huge because, I mean, we're always on the skeptic. right? Everybody's always a skeptic about what we do in our field and what we produce and what we show. You guys have come up with a way not only to analyze it, to show that it's real evidence, but you've also come up with a way to measure it and quantify it to where, hey, we're not just showing you bullshit. This is actual measurable data we provide to you from the paranormal community, and that's fantastic.
Right. You know, and it lends because I'm also going to be doing in 2025 a clinical-based study about people who have experienced trauma, residual trauma from paranormal experiences. So having MEGS as part of that, because I work for Rutgers University, so my goal is to try to get something on a university research level to show what we do and how it impacts people's lives. And so usually I need something like MEGS to, you know, make the data support it.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. So thank you for what you do for mental health in the community and what you do out there. Anthony, thank you for your years of service and protecting this community. You to continue to put people on the streets to protect our community. There, you both hold so much value in me and the team, and I can't express how much we appreciate what you guys do outside of the paranormal on top of what you do inside the paranormal. It's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Right back at you guys. We love you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We went a little bit longer than usual, but it was worth every freaking minute. We appreciate you guys all coming out. Now, remember, guys, we won't be here next week because of the holiday weekend. We're traveling, spending time with family, and I suggest you do the same. Make sure not only do you value those around you, don't just value what you catch in a clip in the paranormal. Don't just value what's out there that has passed and is no longer in the living form with us today. Make sure this weekend you spend time with your family and you value those that are still sitting in front of you, right? The ones that are still in their meat suits, make sure you value those. You make sure you love them because you don't want to have to catch them on an EVP. You want to talk to them now while they're still here and they can respond. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Make sure you eat a lot of turkey. Make sure you get fat, you get humble. Make sure you love those around you. Most of all, make sure you do what Frankie and Anthony does every day for the paranormal. You make sure that you love what you do. You have passion for what you do, whether it's in life or whether it's in death. No matter what you guys do, guys, have a great Thanksgiving and stay haunted. Guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Can you give me a name? What's your name?